Everybody, today we're looking at Ezekiel chapters 43 to 45, and this is continuing our section of that follows after chapter 37, where after all of these warnings and judgments and now exile has happened, God says, that's not the end of the story, but I'm going to heal and restore and forgive my people. They were like these dead rotten bones, no way to bring themselves back to life, but I'm going to breathe my spirit into them, and I'm going to put flesh on their bones and replace their heart of stone with a heart of flesh, so that they might live and breathe and be my people again. It's this beautiful picture that despite our sinfulness and brokenness, that's not the end of the story that God has for us, but healing, wholeness, and forgiveness, and restoration as his people is. Which then leads Ezekiel to this vision that we started talking about last week, where he gets transported to the temple. And in this vision, he has a tour guide who's giving him a tour of this temple that is to be built. And last time we talked about how the temple does in fact get rebuilt soon after, not too long after this. However, that temple is not the same as this temple. That temple's measurements are not the same, and that temple gets destroyed in 70 AD. It's called the Second Temple, or Herod's Temple. But this temple, no one can touch it. It even says that invaders are going to try to come and destroy God's people and tear the temple down again, but it's not going to happen. And so this is a future promise that we have, that God is in this process of now he's going to give his spirit to his people, which is something that only certain special people were able to have. But soon that reality is going to be true of everyone who calls on God's name, which is, I think, a preview to believers, to Christians who have believed in Jesus, and God gives us his spirit. And that one day we will be transported to this new throne room, this new temple, that where nothing can break in, steal, destroy. We are safe, and God is our God, and we are his people. So I think this is setting up a heavenly preview of what it will be like when God's kingdom has come in its entirety. And so here, this description of this temple is continuing to be talked about. And it's really interesting because Ezekiel even compares this to his earlier vision, where he gets transported to the temple and God's presence leaves the temple and the Babylonians come in and destroy it and ransack it. And he even makes reference to that in chapter 43, verse 3. But then something else here different happens, in that we are told that the glory of the Lord entered the temple through the gate facing east. And that, again, you might think, well, this is just a random thing, but that nothing is ever random in the Bible. So God's presence comes into the temple from the east. Why is that significant? Well, you might go all the way back to Genesis chapter 3 and 4, where Adam and Eve have sinned, they've fallen, and they are kicked out of the garden. They are not allowed back in, and where do they find themselves? East of Eden. So they are out on the exile east of Eden, and here God comes in from the east and resides in the temple again. It's this picture of reversal, of reversing kind of the curse and sin and brokenness that humans have done, and God himself is in the process reversing that. So God comes in and he dwells in the temple again, and he says that no one is going to profane my name, is going to, in this temple, in this setup, no one is going to have misdirected worship anymore, or worshiping of idols. And then it goes on to describe, again, in detail, the measurements of parts of the temple, which refer to how God orders and gives function and purpose to all things. And then the priests come in, and they are commanded to bring a sacrifice. And this sacrifice is, a sacrifice that's mentioned all the way back in the book of the law, the Torah, particularly as you look at the book of Leviticus. This section here is almost like very similar to what we find in Leviticus about what the different offerings are, what their purpose is. And in a sense, you think about what that picture was. Well, that was Moses and God's people out in the wilderness or up on the mountain, and God is drawing his people out of slavery, and he says, you are going to be my people now, and I'm going to give you this set of rules to live by. And he sort of gives them, he makes them a community, his people, and says this is what it's going to be like again. So this whole picture is like going back all the way up to Mount Sinai again. And Ezekiel here is like the new Moses, where God is giving Ezekiel these instructions, which are the same instructions that God gave Moses, that you are to come into my presence, I will dwell with you, you will be my people, and I will be your God. And here's how we relate. First, it starts with you acknowledging your brokenness and your sin and asking me to forgive you. And so this is the exact same picture that we see all the way back in the Torah. And I think it's really interesting that this these things in the Bible get repeated over and over, as I said before, like hyperlinks to other parts of the Bible. That it sets up this amazing picture that we are sinful and broken, and yet God loves us and forgives us. But an act needs to happen in order for us to receive that forgiveness. That a life must be offered in exchange for our own life. And so these whole chapters are it's really easy to get lost in them, but remember these are amazing promises of, God never giving up on his people, of God kind of reiterating things of the past and reminding people, just like it was then, when you were come out of slavery, and I gave you these laws that cemented the fact that you are my people and I'm your God. We're doing that again. I'm making all things new. We've hit the reset button, and this time it's going to be different. It's a really beautiful picture of who God is and what God continues to do. So may you hold on to that, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.